Welcome to the latest edition of What You Need to Know, a Canadian Polycast. I'm Alison Fair, consultant here at Bluesky Strategy Group, and it's all about the Cabinet. I have my colleague Susan Smith and former Liberal Member of Parliament and Lieutenant General, the Honourable Andrew Leslie, joining me today. Lots of excitement here in Ottawa. New Cabinet. Women are now in charge of key portfolios. Anand Duclos, sensitive files. What does this front bench tell you? And are there any implications for our clients? Andy, since you've been a member of Parliament, let's start with you first.
Well, I'd like to start with Anita Anand. I think her choice is inspirational. I think she has shown from her previous job as a minister that she can get things done. I think it's time that a woman became the Minister of National Defence once again. And her first priority in terms of time has to be dragging the institution forward. When I say institution, I mean not only the Canadian Armed Forces, but the senior bureaucrats at the Department of National Defence, in terms of making sure that the reprehensible behavior of certain individuals vis-a-vis sexual assault, sexual misconduct is brought out to the fore, and the survivors are treated appropriately, and the institution can move forward with a better culture. So that's job one, but it's underlain by her new responsibilities, which are the defense of Canada. And that's her highest priority overall. And in the National Defence Act, she has a unique role to play within government, within the machinery of government, not the least of which is getting the equipment and the tools and the resources for the troops to train, because we're entering an increasingly dangerous and complicated world. And after Susan goes next, I will then talk about our new Minister of Foreign Affairs, and you'll see the duality of the roles will come out to the fore.
Do you agree with him, Susan, on his points on Anita?
Well, I think she's got a big job, obviously. She's got to take the country, she's got to sort out the department from the sexual harassment issue. I mean, every time a senior person was announced, they got whacked because something was coming out about it from a long time ago or the not so recent past. But she's got to buy things. She's got big purses to manage too, as do the women. There are many women actually that have big financial portfolios in government. We've got Chrystia Freeland. Anita Anand's got her big one. The other big one is Mona Fortier at Treasury Board. This isn't something that's widely known outside of Ottawa, but Treasury Board controls the proverbial purse strings of the Government of Canada. At Finance, they announce the direction and the programs, and at Treasury Board, they're the ones that make sure the money gets spent the way it's supposed to be spent. So you have three women in those senior portfolios. Those, I think, are super important signals. You asked too about the Prime Minister and what this cabinet was telling people. He ran on key priorities with childcare, with housing affordability, with reconciliation, with dealing, of course, with the pandemic, and of course with COVID economic recovery. And we have a minister now responsible for each of those things. There's even a new housing minister, and that's Ahmed Hussein. So that's the signal I sent. I think that this cabinet puts forward to people.
And we had Jolie, as and Andrew mentioned. She's been elevated. What do your quick thoughts on Jolie's rise in the ranks?
Well, it shows that she has the confidence of the Prime Minister to an extent which puts her above the vast majority of the rest of the members of Cabinet. And she's had a variety of tough files in her past. Of course, this is not her first time at the ministerial chair. She's going to have to deal with the Canada-US relationship, which is not nearly as smooth sailing as some might think. And she'll have an impact on trade, of course.
We can't forget China, right?
Absolutely. Next one up is China, and increasingly problematic relations, and of course some of the activities and issuances that are linked to the Canada-China relationship. And let's not forget the sort of the triumvirate in terms of the complexity: Canada-US, Canada-China, and the triangle that it creates. And last but certainly not least is Indo-Pacific. That whole region. What does it mean? And what does it do vis-a-vis trade and security and defense alliances?
Your quick thoughts, Susan, on Jolie? Were you surprised?
It's a very interesting appointment. I mean, Marc Garneau, that was the big surprise, I think, in cabinet, that Marc Garneau was out of cabinet. He was our first astronaut, and I think he was a good foreign affairs minister, but the prime minister clearly wants to shake things up there. I think we expect the former minister Garneau, Marc Garneau, to get an appointment. I see him, continuing in his statesman role for Canada. Maybe it's Paris, maybe it's somewhere else, but I think he'll continue to be a representative, a very able representative for Canada. Joly will have lots of hot files, as Andy said. I mean, even something is potentially controversial is whether we send our team to the Beijing Olympics. I mean, that's going to come up too. So I think Mélanie Joly will draw on all of her experience in government. She has to work with the Minister of Trade, Mary Ng. Harjit Sajjan is the International Development Minister, working as part of that department. So there is never a dull moment at Foreign Affairs, I don't think, and she will be very busy. And of course, working hand in hand with the Prime Minister on the international stage too.
For sure.
So I think it would be interesting.
Yeah, so let's talk about the other big move. This was Wilkinson, who did a pretty good job at environment, moved to natural resources, and former Greenpeace activist Stephen Guilbeault moved into environment. What does this say? And is he possible political trouble for Trudeau and the provinces and the bigger picture as we go into COP? Andy?
And he's bursting on this one.
Look, it's always a risk to put an activist in charge of any department for which he or she has a lifelong passion. Whether or not the passions can be constrained within the demands of government in a cabinet context, we'll see. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the Prime Minister wanted to signal a variety of things, and this is one way of getting a whole bunch of attention on the issue. It's just the whole collegiality of cabinet may come under a great deal of pressure over the next couple of months, and we'll see how it all works out.
I think Wilkinson and Guilbeault will have to operate as a tag team more than any time before. Wilkinson's a former clean tech executive, right? So he'll bring his business perspective, which he had at Environment Canada, over to natural resources. I think the West is a bit worried. Jason Kenney's pressing that button a little bit. I think most of the big policy markers are in place, though. We do have a price on carbon. The pathway is there that Canada's going to be on, and people in the last election said to this government, or said to politicians, we need you to do something about climate change. So the Canadian government has a plan on climate change, so Minister Guilbeault will have to implement that. It will have to be balanced with the fact that we still need the right kind of economic and resource development in this country. So, Minister O'Regan was well liked in the NRCan portfolio. Mr. Wilkinson will have to put his own imprint on it. Interesting thing with Seamus O'Regan moving over to Labour, couple of things. Part of the big transition on the energy transition side is Labour.
Correct.
And Mr. Seamus O'Regan is an excellent communicator. And from a political perspective, this government needs Labour to be on side with what it's doing from the economic recovery side of things, and to get and ultimately to continue to govern. So I think Seamus O'Regan will actually play a large role in that too.
Interesting. So going into COP then, is Guilbeault going to make a big statement with Trudeau going over there, and the pressure right now on the world to make changes to battle climate change?
I think what we are doing at COP is already baked in, okay. And they won't be rewriting speeches with Minister Guilbeault there. And with the Prime Minister there, Mr. Guilbeault has to stand half a step back. That's the way it works with the global leaders, right, Andy?
It does. On the other hand, building on Alison's point, I think Minister Guilbeault will be the statement. He doesn't have to make one. The fact that he's been appointed Minister of the Environment is a pretty big statement enough.
Yeah.
Fair point. So with this big cabinet reveal yesterday, a lot of fresh faces, a lot of old faces coming back. So it's a good balance. Trudeau, in his press conference following the reveal, told reporters that he intends to lead the Liberals into the next federal election, whenever that be. Let's hope it's more than 18 months at this point, because I think we're just electioned out at this point. But Is this the team, in your view, that will take him into that next federal election, Susan?
Well, first of all, the Prime Minister just got elected, so he's obviously not going anywhere. He just was elected for the third time, which not very many Prime Ministers have been able to do in the country. Elected the first time and then re-elected 2 more times. So before they run him to the polls for the second or run him out of town, he has to have a chance to govern. I don't know if he'll stay right to the end, actually, but he did have to answer that question with a yes. I think he's put together a very solid team. I think a few people on that team may not run in the next election. You know, Minister Bennett is still there, Carolyn Bennett. She's 75. She probably might not take another kick at it when and if the next election comes. I suspect the same with Lawrence Macaulay too. So there will be room for some movement, and there may be others. You know, we had a surprise retirement with Catherine McKenna the last time around. So there's always change. So you may see some faces before the next election. Really excited to see Sean Fraser in the cabinet. He's from Nova Scotia. He's been a very, very capable parliamentary secretary. I think just missed cabinet in 2019. He's our new immigration minister. Other new faces, Randy Boissonneau out of Edmonton. He's the new associate minister of finance and minister of tourism, a very hard hit sector in COVID. That's a very, you know, it's a promotional in the sense it's a bit of rah Canada, but he's got a very difficult job in helping to kind of revitalize that sector and make sure it's there. Helena Jasic from Ontario, former provincial cabinet minister. She's new in cabinet. Goody Hutchins from Newfoundland, rural economic development. Pascal Saint-Onge, we have a new minister of sport, back to the Beijing Olympics.
Yeah.
With Mark Holland, who's a new whip, and Marcy Ian is a name and a face that people will know out of Toronto. So 9 new ones. 6 cabinet ministers from WYNTK Canada. We used to have 4. That's good news for them. And lots of busy work to happen.
Yeah. Andy, you've been in that position. You've been there. What do you take? Is this the team Trudeau can get all of his promises from the campaign through?
He'd better. That was the promise made. Yep. So, I mean, there's only one person who decides who goes in cabinet, as we know so well. So this is the team in which he has the utmost confidence. And now they've got to perform, and he's got to perform in terms of making sure that they get done what he wants done. So, and it's only going to get tougher for Prime Minister Trudeau from this point on. It always does, apparently, looking at the historical studies of people in their second or rarely their third time to a successful election. One additional name I'd like to bring to our attention, and that is Jean-Yves Duclos, who's gone in as Minister of Health. My intent is not to try to judge anybody, but of all the ministers I've seen in action when I was, a parliamentarian, Minister Duclos is amongst the very best organized and probably the most quietly competent and efficient amongst them all. And him going to health is a huge signal, obviously, of the importance of health, but also some changes are required. The neat thing is that after his time as Treasury Board, where he established a very good reputation, he knows how to get the money, he knows where it's to be found, he knows the linkages and networks you got to build around town to get things done. So let's watch that one pretty carefully.
Yeah, going through everyone's biographies and backgrounds in prep for yesterday, wow, his resume totally impressed me. Rhodes Scholar, I think there's now 2 Rhodes Scholars that are in this cabinet. 3.
Lametti and Randy Boissonneau.
It's fabulous. Fabulous.
Oh, 4, Christian Freeland.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So lots of smart people in this cabinet. I look forward to, especially in the next 100 days, what happens and what they'll be able to achieve. Right. Susan and Andrew, I really appreciate your time and thank you very much.
Thanks, Allison.
All right. And thank you to the viewers for watching. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Bluesky Strategy Group is one of Canada's leading public affairs firms. For government relations, lobbying, and strategic communications advice across Canada, visit us at blueskystrategygroup.com. Bluesky Strategy Group is a proud member of the Global Communications Alliance.